With the lifting of the ban on electioneering campaign in Nigeria yesterday, a new season of political activities has started. The presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Omoyele Sowore, has vowed that his government will resuscitate transportation sector in the country with concentration on the welfare of transport workers. He also added that he will scrap the police barrack system if elected the next president of Nigeria in 2023. Sowore, who is as polarizing in politics as is always a combative media practitioner, interestingly, his transition to partake in the game of begging for votes has not tamed his antagonism towards the government and political establishment. So joining us now from our Abuja studio to discuss his campaign strategies and activities is Omoyele Sowore, presidential candidate of the AAC. Real quickly, let's go straight to it. I'd like to know your policy slant on the state of the Naira. There's a big talk about allowing the Naira find its value through a float, or the government still aids it by using a parts of government like the central bank to shore it up and pump some money into it. And a lot of people say that's not allowing investors come in and the likes. What will you do to the Naira if you get in?
Well, the first thing to do with the Naira is to completely abolish the multiple rate system in the Naira. That's what is promoting the corruption that is killing the Naira. If you go to the Central Bank of Nigeria today, depending on who you talk to or depending on who you know, you can exchange the Naira for as low as 300 to a dollar. And they have, I don't even know how many rates they have. Without eliminating that rate and allowing the Naira to find its own balance, not by floating, but by ensuring that our macroeconomic policies are in tandem with the managers of our economy. I mean, they all understand that the economy ought to be managed a certain way. One of the things I would have done if I was president of Nigeria today is I would have fired the central bank governor. He has no credibility, having dabbled into politics and tried to become a presidential candidate in the last primaries. So you cannot expect your macroeconomic manager to be so tainted that people have no faith even in the central bank of your country. Ultimately, the way to protect the Naira is to produce. I have said this always, that without production, without getting our system in place in which we have an energy system or a power system, as we like to call it, so that it ensures that Nigerians, whether you are a small business person or you are a multinational corporation, can produce inside Nigeria, we will have no means of protecting our currency because we are not players in the international market as such. The only product we have there is oil, crude oil, and about half of that is stolen on a daily basis today. And we can't find people who are stealing 700,000 barrels of oil on a daily basis, but we can find people who steal phones on the street and put them in jail forever. So leadership is key, but most importantly, to have very solid macroeconomic managers that understand that the Nigerian economy is not meant for just ordinary investors. It's meant for the Nigerian people. Because I hear this all the time, people saying, well, you don't have a system that, foreign direct investors can come into. No, the problem is not foreign investors. It's our own people that must be protected first before you protect people who are here to come in, invest on the short term and take away whatever big profits they can take. So it's a macroeconomic issue, and I think it's also a political economic issue, because part of our problem is that since, for the longest time, I know in 1989, our economy has been run by non-Nigerians. I mean, those people are the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, and they're not here to protect you. They're here to protect the interests of their governments and their partners within, the multinational corporations that they have interest in.
Okay, Sowore, I just read a piece written by Gimba Kikanda titled Sowore, the Last of the Radicals. And it says your major disadvantage in this election is your radicalism, your idealism, Yeah, that's the word he used. And, I'm tempted to agree with him. In July, when you declared your assets on Twitter, you were declaring some ancient Samsung Galaxy Note 10 as an asset, and iPhones, a two-bedroom bungalow. Who considers a Samsung Galaxy 10 an asset by today's standards? And then you have refused to go and visit those persons that Dele Momodu calls the owners of Nigeria. You have not gone to Mina. You have not gone to Abeokuta. You are not paying homage to anybody, and you want to be president. Then you are talking about legalizing marijuana, and then you want to close down police barracks. These are clearly unorthodox views. What do you say to that characterization by Kikanda?
Well, let me thank Gimba for such a well-written prose on myself. I agree with him that I don't know how to genuflect on the altars of fallen gods. If you wake up in Nigeria and you look at your environment, you look at your roads, your hospitals, your schools that are closed down, a level of high institutions, children that are wandering the streets, and the only thing you can do is to head to Mina or Abeokuta or wherever these so-called owners of Nigeria are, who, by the way, should be in prison, some of them, then something is wrong with you. I cannot fathom why a presidential candidate or a politician will go in the direction of people who destroy the country when they are claiming that you want to reclaim the country. And that's been my position. And I don't want to waste my time pleading with them, knowing that so many of them don't even add any political value to the country. They just erect, a shrine somewhere where people come and worship them. And they are the ones sometimes who go out and say, hey, tell Sowore to come and visit me. Tell this person to come and visit me. What we're saying, if the Nigerian people actually need to own their country, we have to travel in a different direction. You were talking about my Galaxy phone as something that is not an asset. It's because you are used to people who steal and have huge assets that they did not work for. I work for my own Galaxy phone. An iPhone that is about ₦1 million, you cannot claim that it's not an asset. You can't claim that a bicycle is not an asset. Any asset that you can use for even financial transactions. If I want to borrow money from you and you are not sure that I'll pay you back, you can ask me to drop my iPhone. So it becomes an asset in that regard because I can use it for a collateral. But it's also to let you know that you don't have to own half of Nigeria to be happy or to be a good person. And that's why I'm glad I declared my asset within 10 minutes after I saw on Twitter that Sarah was requesting for presidential candidates to declare their asset. The other candidates, since 3 months that I declared mine, haven't been able to declare their assets because some of them don't even know where their assets are located, and they can never compile their assets. And it's time for Nigerians, as I keep saying, to stop voting for people who are greedy and look in the direction of those who are in need. That shows to you that my 51 years on earth, I've never stolen anybody's property. I've never tried to own what doesn't belong to me. But that did not make me a lesser human being than those who own half of Nigeria, private jets, who have money hidden in tax havens, because they are not happier than me. Instead, they are carrying the burden of depriving the citizens of Nigeria their own entitlements. And this will not continue forever. You brought up the issue of marijuana again. The last time I was discussing this 4 years ago, people were making fun of me on your show that, oh, you're talking about marijuana. But marijuana has become good now. The Ondo State governor traveled to Malaysia to try and set up a marijuana business in Ondo State, my state. And when I saw him at the hotel, I said, why are you going to Malaysia? You're wasting money. Ask me in 5 minutes, I'll tell you how to refine marijuana. Canada is making over $4 billion annually from legalizing marijuana, because marijuana is not just what makes people high, it's medicinal. It's what you can use to treat arthritis. The leaves can be used to make clothes. It can be used to make ropes. So if I am Ondo State governor and I can make $1 billion from planting marijuana, which is already in abundance in Ondo State, by the way, why would I be going to Abuja to beg for the peanuts that they share on a monthly basis? So these are things that people must understand. I think I'm a little bit ahead of my time. And I'm happy that all of you are seeing the value of what I discussed 4 years ago. You now understand what I was saying 4 years ago when I said, why don't you look in direction of cannabis as a way of diversifying the economy?
Okay, sure, right.
We already have them being grown in those states, in Edo State and Delta State.
Okay, sure. Right. Real quickly, when you were talking, you said, depending on who you ask, you can get $250 to the dollar. Where is that in Nigeria? I mean, I'd like you to prove to me empirically. Probably I should go there. Maybe you know something I don't know as a journalist. And secondly, I'd like to ask you, what has happened? No, hang on a minute. Let me just ask you this question. What would you do?
Yeah.
Something's affecting Nigeria is the price of cooking gas. In the space of 1 year, sure, it has increased 101%. The price of cooking gas in the space of a year has increased 101%.
Yes.
That's like the biggest increase on any commodity I can think of now as we speak. What would you do to bring the price of cooking gas down? And tell me where you can get dollar for 250 naira per the dollar. I mean, I would like to know. Maybe we'll rush there now.
Well, when I was talking about $250, don't get me wrong, I did say that whatever it is. What I'm speaking figuratively about the multiple exchange rates that is controlled by the Central Bank of Nigeria, and that those things are shrouded in fraud and they are shrouded in secrecy as regards who could get it. Some of them, they said, was done because they want us, people who send children to school, to have a window that is different from those who are importing or those who don't need it, who need it for luxury. But what I'm saying is that that's a shady business out there, and that we should have one simple naira exchange rate and not the one that can be manipulated or used by those in CBN to cash out. That's a well-known fact. So if it's not 250, what you agree with me is that there are multiple rates, and that's what I'm referring to. With regards to gas, it's not something you can just bring down. And this is why I've been saying regarding subsidy. Everybody says, well, we don't need subsidy. We're not subsidizing gas, and it's expensive and it's hard and harsh for our people to get gas. My solution for bringing down the price of gas might be a little bit long term. I think it's a shame that Nigeria still doesn't have gas piped to every home, but we can ship our gas to Italy and parts of Europe, especially now that we have the war going on between Ukraine and Russia, where there's huge demand for gas. It's not available locally because the parity of the price is affecting us. We are paying for our refusal or our failure to have made gas available domestically by piping gas to every home across the country. We still drive gas cylinders all over the country. And when you add transportation costs to moving the cylinders, which are pretty heavy, and the cost of getting them to primary retailers, the price cannot be as cheap as you would have wanted it to be had it just been that it's a tap. Just like you have tap water at homes, is the way we should have had gas done. And that's one of the things I would do immediately, is to commission a process of piping gas to every home in the country the way it is done elsewhere. That way, you eliminate the cost of transportation of those cubes that we call cylinders, and it will bring down the price. But immediately, if necessary, I will put in place some sort of cushion for the people, because gas is very important for domestic use and is what most Nigerians survive on. Those are areas where we should be considering subsidy, not giving 16 trillion naira to companies that are already doing very well in the country, what I call corporate welfare.
Okay,
don't forget, apart from gas, kerosene is also expensive.
Okay, Sowore, there was a question I brought up when we had our conversation with Dr. Obaseki just before you joined us about polls. All the polls that we have had in recent times, the ANAP Foundation poll done in conjunction with NOI polls, the ICIR poll, and also just now, the Bloomberg News poll done in conjunction with Premise, all indicate that Peter Obi will win the 2023 election if the election were to take place today. In fact, Bloomberg is saying that he will win by a landslide, even next year. But you have been quoted as saying that Peter Obi is not the change we need because he's part of the old system. But there's this obedient movement, supporting him. Many of the obedience used to be with you in 2019, but they've moved to Peter Obi now. Are you bothered by the momentum that this man that you say is not the Messiah is, gathering?
You see, when it comes to polls, they serve their own purpose and they serve their own biases. What I would have said to you, if the polls are so favorable to a particular candidate that they say he will win by a landslide, why are we going into elections in the first place? Why won't you just hand over the country to the person who won these polls? I looked at Bloomberg's poll yesterday. It had the smallest sample size of any poll I've ever seen, which shows clear bias or incompetence on their part. They sampled 3,000 Nigerians. There are 82 million voters in Nigeria. What they taught me at Columbia University is that any sample size that is less than 10% of the population is not representative of the population. What is 3% compared to 82 million voters? And who did they talk to? In Nigeria, where not everybody carries telephone or cell phone or can read or write or on Twitter, you cannot say that a poll definitely represents the bias or the interests of voters, because so many of them have never heard about Bloomberg before. Unlike in America, where you can say that everybody you talk to knew what is going on in the country. You ask if they have telephone, do they have TV, are they members of political parties? You cannot come to a neighborhood in Abuja, pick some samples, and determine that everybody in Nigeria will vote for a particular candidate. I have also said, with regards to NOI and the first poll that was conducted by Peter Said Atedo's group, that they have no credibility, because Peter Said is Peter Obi's campaign manager. He was the one who first of all went and sought out SDP. They were on the verge of announcing that Peter Obi would join SDP when they found that the Labour Party was available. So it's the same thing with NOI. NOI also, that is the Ngozi Iweala's poll, that had predicted that Jonathan will win in 2015. He didn't win. There are a lot of polls like that. When Trump was contesting in the US, every poll favored Hillary Clinton. But at the end of the day, Hillary did not win the election. So polls are what they are. But I just want to say, don't carry this poll thing too far, considering that they have their biases. Their sample size are nothing to write home about, because they have determined they want to get certain outcome. They want certain of their biases to load high on the candidate they are interested in. But why I have said Peter Obi is part of the old system, he said it on your show yesterday himself, that the ideology of himself or his party is not different from that of Atiku and that of the PDP. The young people who are aspiring to be Peter Obi's obedience, are people who expect a different direction, not PDP and APC. But their candidate is saying he's an APC ideologue or PDP ideologue. They are not different. That's why people are saying that. Some presidential candidate also came here, maybe I think, and said, oh, Peter Obi is not different from Atiku and Tinubu. And that's the truth. They were governors for 8 years. Atiku was vice president for 8 years. Tinubu was senator for a few years when we were fighting before we started fighting for democracy in those days. And Kwakwanso was governor for 10 years. We are talking about records, not biases. And the last thing you said, that some of my followers are now following Peter Obi. Where did you carry out the poll? That our followers are ideologically different. If you know of anybody who used to support me solidly, not somebody who said, well, we like Sowore, who is now supporting Peter Obi, you can let me know. But I'm sure you just said that because, of course, you might have gotten carried away by what they call the obedience. I am a very disobedient person. I've always been disobedient against authority. It will even be an anomaly to call myself an obedient person in a country where people get oppressed on a daily basis. But that's their choice. What I'm saying is that don't use polls to judge the choice of voters, especially when the poll sizes are too small, okay, or they have clear political biases.
Okay. So just for the sake of balance and the sake of elucidation, even in America, the sample size for a Gallup national presidential poll, you can go and verify, is 1,000 to 1,500. That's what they use, even for a bigger population, sample size. And this is just for the sake of balance across board. But let me talk to you about something.
I'm telling you what I was taught in school. I'm telling you what I was taught in school.
Okay, I mean, I get you. I get you. I get you. I get you. And for the sake of the...
My sample size from what I learned in the university is 10%. But even Gallup polls will tell you where they went. They won't tell you... Bloomberg did not tell us who they spoke to.
Okay.
Whether they spoke to people in Day markets or is Naibawa Park in Kano. We don't have that information. Gallup poll will break it down to you.
Okay. So secondly, one other thing you made mention of that I even want to talk to you about is you mentioned kerosene, which is very critical, which a lot of people use to burn as fuel to cook for their food. Kerosene in the space of a year or two has increased in price by 102.3%. Kerosene used to be 400 naira as of August 2021. Now, kerosene is well over 800 naira for just a liter of kerosene. And I remember in this country at a point in the late 90s, like 96, 97, that same one bottle of kerosene used to be about 6 naira. You know, what would you do about this increase in price and inflation? That's one. A stat came out recently, a couple of years ago, that said Nigeria's healthcare system is one of the worst in the world. So I'll ask you, what would you do about the healthcare system of Nigeria and that increase in price in kerosene, because it affects the mass people?
You see, the pricing of kerosene, it's one of the reasons why I keep telling people that when you are going after subsidies and not address the issue of making the supply and demand for a certain product, you are wasting your time. Kerosene is not subsidized, right? The only product from the crude that we refine in Nigeria, outside of Nigeria, that is subsidized is gasoline, what we call petrol. Why is it that all the products that are not subsidized, we are not getting accruals from it, we are not benefiting from the loss of those subsidies to the people, which is always the argument of government. That if we subsidize, we'll take the money that we get from these subsidies and put it in social welfare for the public, which is a lie. It's always been false. This is a lie that they've told over the years. And the solution, again, remains that we must produce locally. Our refineries must be working. 4 refineries can work within a short span of time. And if they work, each time you wheel in crude, even if it is 1 barrel, you'll be able to produce kerosene, you produce diesel, you produce jet A fuel. You can produce a variety of products, and there are about 50 products that comes out of a refined crude. So that's why we must get back our refineries to work. Even our opponents have said it, that there's no subsidy. Subsidy is just the subsidization of criminal gangs in the country. We found out in 2012, and now they have admitted that these subsidies are just going into the pockets of special persons with connections, particularly political connections and economic connections in the country. Stop lying that you are subsidizing Nigeria. You are subsidizing crooks in the country. And without taking out these crooks immediately, you are not going to be able to get a handle or a hang around controlling the prices of these goods, because you just leave these groups to determine the prices of products that they claim are not subsidized. So what they need to do is just hoard it whenever people need it and use that to drive prices up. And when the prices go up, they release it because there are no controls. It seems that there's nobody in charge. Just that there are nobody in charge in the crude sector, where we can just lose 700,000 barrels of oil on a daily basis. 700,000 barrels is not just a few kegs of kerosene. And one other thing I want to tell you is that if Niger Delta people with just open drums cut in half can be producing diesel, why is it that Nigeria as a nation cannot produce petroleum products? If we can help a businessman build a refinery and go there to shamelessly commission it, why is it that Nigeria couldn't have built its own refineries within that period that the so-called rich man, billionaire, built his own? So those are the issues. You were also talking about the health sector. Of course, what do you expect the health sector to be when the president of your country can't go to a hospital in Nigeria? They ruined it. They destroyed it. And to compound the situation now, you have over 8,000 doctors have left Nigeria in the last 2 years after COVID to take care of the people who used to tell us that it's wrong to invest in education. And now, to make it matters worse, Your universities are closed for 8 months now. So where are you going to train the next set of doctors that will take care of these problems without immediately arresting these problems, including reopening the universities, investing in them, so that we can rapidly produce more doctors that take care of the population that is going to come, and invest heavily in the health sector, both primary, secondary, and tertiary sector of the health sector. There's no way around it. If you don't make the investment with discipline and honesty, you are not going to get a health sector that is working. You must have a health insurance system that works for the people and make sure that they are monitored, and you have hospitals. We used to have hospitals, what do they call it? General hospitals around Nigeria that works. What happened to them? They ruined them. They destroyed them so that they can take all the monies for Nigeria abroad to take care of a few people who can afford it. How much do we spend in India every year? Was it not that they used to say that the Saudi Arabia leaders or their kings and their members of families used to come to UCH in Ibadan to treat themselves? What happened to us that we can no longer treat even common malaria and cholera? Diseases that have disappeared from the surface of the earth in other parts of the world are still prominent here in Nigeria. Okay. It's very sad, but like I keep saying, without the right people in charge of Nigeria, the right investments cannot be made, and the right, country cannot be gotten. It's not a rhetoric question. You need leaders. We don't have leaders here.
Okay, Sowore, a set of questions. One, are you going to be at the National Peace Accord meeting today in Abuja, summoned by the National Peace Committee led by General Abdulsalami Abubakar? That's one. Two, when are you inaugurating your own campaign council? PDP has done its own. When are we having your own event announcing members of your campaign council? And third, the question I asked earlier about police barracks, you haven't addressed that. I asked you that you are quoted as saying you will scrap police barracks and create a housing system. Are you also going to scrap military barracks and also create a housing scheme for policemen, considering the fact that, yes, the barracks may not be in a good shape, but they seem to serve some kind of social-cultural purpose? Those three short things.
Yeah, let me address your first question, which is if I'll go to the peace accord signing event. Yes, as soon as I leave this place, I'm going there, even though I have my reservations about it. I don't know why we are signing peace accord when we are not at war. This signifies that Nigeria is at war, and the elections are war, or wars in this country. But, for the sake of the symbolism of it, I'll show up there and sign whatever they want us to sign so that people can understand that I subscribe to peace during election and after election. You asked a question about inaugurating a campaign council. I told you before, Dr. Abati, that we never stopped campaigning since 2019. So the idea of another symbolic or festival of inaugurating a 600-man campaign council is not how we operate in our party and in our movement. Our movement right there has gotten campaigners all over the place, to the grassroots, in universities, on the streets. So how many of them can we inaugurate? We don't want to engage in those kind of wasteful, symbolism of how big your campaign is. I think what we need to see and what we must continue to encourage is how big ideas can bubble to the surface in this country to help this country gain its foothold in progress, peace, and prosperity, not jamborees, which is what the other parties are doing. If you want to know our campaigners, go to the grassroots, go to the ward levels, go to the state levels, senatorial districts, federal constituencies, and nationally. So all of us are campaigning, and we are members of the campaign council. That's another one. The issue of barracks, I have said it, that the barrack system, kind of excludes law enforcement from the society that they live in. I don't think we need barracks. I think we need a housing system for police officers across the country to make sure that within that 35 years that they are in the force, they build their own homes and live in them. And if you have to transfer them to a constituency or a place where they are far from their homes, you can always provide for them monies to rent houses, because that transfer, when I come to power, every police officer will not stay permanently in any police station or unit. you have to keep revolving them so that they get used to their work and they get used to their citizens. So I want to build you a house so that when something happens to you, you retire, you have a place to go to. But when you live in the barracks, it makes you lazy. You don't have a house. When you now retire, you don't want to leave the barracks. And sometimes the barracks are in bad shape. Nobody's taking care of them. I want you to own your own houses and get used to civilian life because get used to the people you are protecting, not be away from them. With regards to the military, I will also abolish the barrack system that you have now, but I will keep barracks in place for mobilization. What I mean is that if we are going to fight, you have a barracks you can go to, get ready for the fight or assignments, and when you are done, you go back to your house. That's how it is done all over the world. If the US had to build barracks for all their soldiers, probably they will have cities that are just barracks alone, just army barracks. But they have what they call forts, where they mobilize people, or when they have training or they have events to gather, and they have temporary housing for them. It's the same thing I would do for the military, and the same thing I would do for customs. This idea of barracks is waste of money. And you look at the police system, for instance, when they build barracks and the barracks are in bad shape, somebody is giving money to fix them, they just embezzle the money. Let's put that money in a housing system, which they already have, by the way, now.
Okay, sure, right.
Just expand that.
Thank you so much. Campaign has just started. We'll have more time to talk up till February. Thank you so much for your time.